January 3rd, 1972. A kitchen knife. A teenager dead in the crawl space. John Wayne Gacy had just committed his first murder, but it wasn't premeditated. It was a fatal misunderstanding that unleashed a monster. Timothy Jack McCoy was only 15 years old. Tim wasn't just any teenager. He was the kid who spent hours watching trains go by, memorizing every model, every schedule. The kid who saved every cent of his allowance to buy railroad magazines. The kid who dreamed of traveling by train across the entire country, stopping at every station, seeing every city. December 1971. Tim traveled by bus from Nevada to Michigan to visit family for Christmas. It was magical. Hugs, laughter, presents under the tree. His mother remembers his smile when he received a new backpack perfect for the trips he dreamed so much about taking. But Christmas ended. January 2nd, 1972. Tim returned to the bus station. A bus to Las Vegas, where he lived with his father. The trip had a layover. Chicago. 6 hours of waiting. The middle of the night. A freezing and half-empty bus station. Tim didn't know those would be the last 6 hours of his life. He wandered through the station, backpack on his shoulders, maybe looking for an open diner, maybe just killing time. That was when John Wayne Gacy saw him. Gacy was 29 years old, a respected businessman, a community volunteer, president of the local Chamber of Commerce, known as someone generous who loved helping young people in trouble. That night, he saw a teenager alone, tired, clearly waiting for a bus that would take hours. Need a place to rest? The question seemed innocent. Gacy introduced himself. He talked about his work, his house, his involvement in the community. Tim hesitated, but the Chicago cold in January is cruel, and the man seemed trustworthy, respectable, kind even. Decision made. Tim got into Gacy's car. The house was in Norwood Park, a quiet suburb. Gacy made him a sandwich. They talked about trains. Gacy was good at appearing interested in whatever it was. He showed him the guest room. Tim thanked him. Finally, he could get a few hours of sleep before his bus. It was almost 4 a.m. when Tim woke up hungry. Quietly, he went down to the kitchen. He didn't want to wake Gacy. He'd just grab something quick and go back to his room. He opened the fridge, grabbed some eggs, found a frying pan. He decided to make breakfast as a thank you for the hospitality. That was when he picked up the kitchen knife. Gacy woke up to noises in the kitchen. Heart racing, confusion, fear. He ran downstairs. He saw a silhouette in the dim light. He saw the knife glinting in the boy's hand. His brain interpreted it as home invasion, threat, attack. What happened in the next few minutes changed everything. Gacy didn't think. He reacted. He went at Tim with a fury he didn't even understand himself. He grabbed the boy. Tim dropped the knife in shock. He tried to explain. He tried to scream. But Gacy's hand was already on his throat. The grip, the pressure, the panic in Tim's eyes. When Gacy finally let go, Tim was motionless on the kitchen floor. Dead, the knife lying beside him. The eggs still in the sink, the frying pan waiting. The silence that followed was deafening. Gacy looked at the body, at his own hands, at the kitchen that suddenly looked like a nightmare set. His brain tried to process it. He hadn't planned this. It was self-defense, right? The kid had a knife. He was in his house. It was defense, but there was a problem. Gacy was a homosexual in 1972, a time when that was a crime in many states. He had a history, a conviction years earlier for child molestation. If he called the police, how would he explain a dead teenager in his house at 4 a.m.? No one would believe it was defense. They would see what they always saw, a predator. He had to make the body disappear. He dragged Tim to the basement. He dug a hole in the crawl space under the house. Sweat poured off him. His hands shook. But something else was happening. Something dark. As he buried Timothy, Gacy felt control, power, excitement. The monster wasn't born that night. It woke up. Gacy covered the hole, cleaned everything, went back to bed. The next day, he went to work as usual. Chamber of Commerce president, children's party organizer, Pogo the clone. No one suspected a thing. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, Tim's father waited. The bus arrived. Tim wasn't on it. Calls were made. Police were notified. Missing teenager. Last location, Chicago. But Chicago swallows people. The investigation went cold. Weeks, months, years. Timothy McCoy became a statistic. Just another runaway. Another cold case. His family never stopped looking. His mother kept the backpack she gave him for Christmas. His sister still dreamed he would come back. He never did. What they didn't know, Timothy didn't leave. He was 20 inches below the floor of Gacy's house. And over the next 6 years, he would have company. 32 other victims, all teenagers, all buried in the same house. December 1978. The police finally raided Gacy's residence while investigating the disappearance of Robert Piest. The smell was unbearable. They began to dig, body after body, horror after horror. When they found Timothy's remains in the crawl space, he was identified only as unidentified victim. He remained anonymous for 35 years. His bones held secrets, but not his name. It wasn't until 2011 that DNA analysis finally gave a name to the first victim, Timothy Jack McCoy, the boy who loved trains, the boy who made eggs in the wrong kitchen. John Wayne Gacy was executed in 1994, confessing to 33 murders. But regarding Timothy, he always stuck to the same story. It was defense. The kid had a knife. It was an accident. The first one doesn't count. But it does count. Timothy counts. Because he wasn't a predator. He was a son, a brother, a 15-year-old boy with a new backpack and dreams of traveling the country. A boy who wanted to make breakfast to show his gratitude for the hospitality. A boy whose kindness was interpreted as a threat. Tim's mother died in 2009, 2 years before the identification. She never knew what happened to her son. She carried that doubt until her last breath. His sister, when she finally received the news in 2011, said simply, "Now he can come home." Timothy McCoy was buried in Las Vegas. His headstone reads, "Beloved son and brother, finally found." How many Timothys exist in the world today? How many teenagers trust strangers because they still believe in kindness? How many monsters wake up because a first time taught them they could? If this story impacted you, leave a like to honor Timothy McCoy. Subscribe to the channel so victims like him are never forgotten. Share this to remind the world they weren't just numbers. They were people. And comment, which story should we tell in the next video? Timothy loved trains. He wanted to see the world. His last trip took him to a monster's basement. But today, 53 years later, we say his name. And he finally made it home.